What if I told you that in just a few minutes, entire cities vanished? That one mistake could destroy millions of lives? History is filled with disasters, some caused by nature, some by human mistakes, but all of them left behind stories of unimaginable destruction and tragedy, from unstoppable tsunamis to deadly nuclear explosions. Today we uncover the worst disasters in human history. And trust me, you won't believe what's coming at the end. What exactly is a disaster? A disaster is any event that brings massive death, destruction, and suffering. Some, like earthquakes and tsunamis, are forces of nature, unstoppable and beyond human control. Others, like nuclear explosions and gas leaks, are entirely man-made, created by greed, negligence, or sheer ignorance. But whether caused by nature or humans, each of these disasters left scars on the world that can never be erased. Let's begin with one of the deadliest natural disasters of all time, one that struck without warning and left nations in ruins. The 2004 Indian Ocean Tsunami. The day the ocean attacked it was December 26, 2004. A normal, peaceful morning in Southeast Asia. Families were enjoying their holidays, kids were playing in the sand, and fishermen were preparing their boats. And then, the ocean disappeared. The water pulled back, exposing the ocean floor. Some people stood there confused. Some even walked toward it, not knowing they had just witnessed the deadliest warning sign of all. Beneath the Indian Ocean, a 9.1 magnitude earthquake had just struck, shifting the Earth's crust. This sent an enormous 100-foot-high tsunami racing toward the land at 500 miles per hour. Within minutes, waves crashed down on the shores of Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and many other countries. Entire villages were washed away. People had no time to escape. Over 230,000 lives were lost. It was one of the deadliest disasters in human history. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the city that burned 5:12 a.m., April 18, 1906. The city of San Francisco was still asleep, when suddenly the ground began to shake. A 7.9 magnitude earthquake hit with such force that buildings crumbled instantly. People ran into the streets screaming as roads split open beneath them. But the worst was yet to come. Within minutes, gas lines burst and massive fires erupted throughout the city. Firefighters had no water to stop the flames because the water pipes were destroyed. For 3 days, San Francisco burned nonstop. By the time it was over, 80% of the city was gone. Over 3,000 people died, and more than 200,000 were left homeless. The 1815 Mount Tambora eruption, the year without a summer. Everyone knows about Pompeii, but what if I told you there was an eruption even bigger? In 1815, the volcano Mount Tambora in Indonesia exploded in the largest volcanic eruption ever recorded. The explosion was so powerful that it was heard 1,200 miles away. An entire island was wiped out. The sky turned black for days, but that was just the beginning. The ash from the eruption blocked the sun, and for an entire year, the Earth experienced what is now called the year without a summer. Crops failed, people starved, and as temperatures dropped worldwide, famine and disease killed over 71,000 people. This was a disaster that changed the entire world. The worst man-made disasters, the Chernobyl Nuclear Disaster, the silent killer, April 26, 1986. A normal safety test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine turned into the worst nuclear disaster in history. A reactor exploded, releasing deadly radiation into the air. The explosion lit up the night sky with a blue glow. But the real danger? No one could see it. Radiation is invisible. People kept going about their day, not knowing they were breathing in poison. It took days for the Soviet government to admit the truth. By then, thousands had already been exposed. The long-term effects, cancer, birth defects, and a massive evacuation. Even today, Chernobyl remains a ghost town. The Titanic sinking, the unsinkable ship that sank. The Titanic is unsinkable. That's what they said. But on April 14, 1912, just 4 days into its first voyage, the Titanic hit an iceberg. At first, no one panicked. The ship was too big to sink, right? But within 2.5 hours, the mighty Titanic was gone. 1,500 passengers drowned. Some lifeboats left half empty. Many third-class passengers were locked below deck. A disaster caused not by nature, but by human arrogance. The Bhopal gas tragedy. The night people couldn't breathe, December 3rd, 1984. Bhopal, India. A toxic gas leak from a pesticide factory spread through the city while people slept. They woke up gasping for air. Their eyes burned, their skin blistered, and within hours thousands were dead. By morning, over 15,000 people had died, and 500,000 more suffered long-term health effects. The worst part? The disaster could have been prevented. Safety systems were turned off to save money. This was one of the worst industrial disasters in history. 5. The most devastating pandemic. The Black Death, the disease that wiped out half of Europe. Imagine a disease so deadly that it killed 50 million people in just 4 years. The Black Death started in 1347 and spread through rats and fleas. People developed huge black boils. They bled from their mouths, and in just a few days, they died. Entire villages were wiped out. Bodies piled up in the streets. And worst of all, no one knew how to stop it. It was the deadliest pandemic in human history. Disasters have shaped history in terrifying ways. Some were caused by unstoppable forces of nature. Others were created by human mistakes. But one thing is certain. Are we truly prepared for the next big disaster? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing stories from history.